What's going on, everyone? This is Gaurav and welcome to my learning channel. So in this video, we're going to try to understand what is a supervised learning and what is a unsupervised learning. We'll also take a look at some of the examples for both and what are some of the common use cases for both and when to use which one. So let's get started. Before we dive into the details of supervised versus unsupervised learning, let's first of all try to understand what a learning algorithm with a simple example. So let's say I ask you to build an algorithm which can detect spam emails so that I can deploy it in the real-time environment. And I give you this data. So in this data, you have two different sections. You have a green section where you have all of the variable available, which will tell you a little bit more about this email which is coming in. And on the right hand side, you have an indicator which is telling you whether or not this email is a spam. So you have some of the variables like domain name, you have the age of email address, you have number of emails per day, which is coming from this particular email address. And then you have another variable which is telling you whether or not this email has any kind of a spelling error. Now at this point in time, let's just assume that learning algorithms are a black box. So you feed this data into this black box and now model knows how to detect and differentiate between a good email and a bad email. So bad emails are your spam emails. And that's all you need to know at this point in time for the learning algorithm. Now, one more thing I want to introduce here is independent variable versus dependent variable. So now everything that you saw as a part of a green section, which are set of variable, which is telling you more information about that email, are your independent variable. And that red section, which is whether or not this email is a spam, is called dependent variable or a label. So you should remember this terminology because I'll keep on referencing it in my future videos and even in this video. Now let's dive into the details of supervised versus unsupervised learning. Here's your Wikipedia definition for supervised machine learning algorithm. So it says where input objects or your independent variables and a desired output value, which is your dependent variable or your labels that we have seen in the last slide, both of them are available and are being used to train a model. So some of the common examples are logistic regression, random forest, gradient boosting machine. Now, if you're wondering what are these techniques, don't worry about it. In the subsequent video, we're going to go into the details of each one of these techniques. We'll try to understand the mathematics behind it, where to use it, and we'll try to implement it in Python. So in the example that we just saw, where we were trying to train the model to detect the spam, where you had both the sections available. So you had a green section, which is your independent variable, and you had the red section, which is your dependent variable. Both of them were present and both of them were being used to build the model. So this is a classic example of supervised learning model. So where do we use supervised learning model in a day-to-day life? Some of the common examples are fraud detection or your spam detection or your stock price prediction. So hopefully this gives you a good idea about what is a supervised learning. Now let's try to understand what are unsupervised learning. So Wikipedia definition for unsupervised learning algorithms. So these are set of algos which can learn the pattern exclusively from unlabeled data. Some of the examples are k-nearest neighbor and clustering. So going back to the same example that we just saw, let's just say that you have to do the same outlier detection. Now you don't have that red section available, so you don't have any information about whether or not a particular email was a spam or not. And you still have to go ahead and train the model. So that will be a classic example of unsupervised learning. So some of the common use cases where you would use unsupervised learning is customer segmentation or a purchase recommendation. So hopefully this gives you a good idea about unsupervised learning. Now, if I have to summarize it between supervised learning and unsupervised learning, if you have the label or the dependent variable available, and if you can use it as a part of the model, that will be supervised learning. If you don't have the label available and you have to train the model, that will be unsupervised learning. One of the common use cases for supervised learning algorithm is outlier detection. Some of the common use cases for unsupervised learning is customer segmentation or any kind of a purchase recommendation. Now, if you like a content like this, I would request you to like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Have a great day.